Admiral Zexhai stood on the bridge of the flagship Eternal Dominion. His four arms crossed in satisfaction as he watched the tactical display. The human fleet was pulling back. After months of fierce fighting around the outer rim systems, the stubborn mammals were finally showing sense. "Admiral," his communications officer called out, her voice carrying barely contained excitement. "The human commander is requesting to speak with you directly." Zexhai's mandibles clicked in amusement. So the humans wanted to negotiate their surrender. How predictable. He had fought 17 different species across the galaxy, and they all followed the same pattern. Initial resistance, desperate fighting, then the inevitable acceptance of Caltharian superiority. "Put him through," Zexhai commanded, settling into his command throne. The holographic display flickered to life, showing a middle-aged human male in a simple military uniform. No decorations, no ceremonial armor like proper warriors wore. These humans truly had no sense of dignity. "I am Admiral Marcus Chen of the United Earth Defense Force," the human said, his voice steady but tired. "I'm here to discuss terms." "Terms?" Zexhai laughed, a sound like grinding metal. "You are in no position to discuss terms, human. Your pathetic fleet is retreating from every system. Your colonies burn. Your people flee before the might of the Caltharian Imperium." Chen's expression didn't change. "Nevertheless, Admiral, I believe we should talk." "Very well. I will hear your surrender." "I'm not here to surrender," Chen said quietly. "I'm here to offer you one last chance to withdraw your forces from human space." The bridge fell silent. Zexhai's subordinates exchanged glances, waiting for their admiral's reaction. When it came, it shook the entire ship. Zexhai's roar of laughter was so powerful that several junior officers stepped back instinctively. "You? Offer terms to us? Human, do you see what surrounds you?" He gestured to the tactical display, which showed the human fleet continuing its retreat toward the inner systems. "Your forces run like prey animals. In the last month alone, we have taken 14 of your colonies. Your military production facilities are rubble. Your trade routes are severed. And you offer me terms?" Chen nodded slowly. "That's correct, Admiral. One last chance." "Entertaining," Zexhai mused. "Tell me, human, what delusion makes you think you are in a position to negotiate?" "Experience," Chen replied. "I've been fighting wars longer than you've been alive, Admiral. I know the difference between a retreat and a strategic withdrawal." "There is no difference when the enemy is stronger," Zexhai countered. "And we are much stronger. Our ships outgun yours 3-1. Our shields are impenetrable by your primitive weapons. Our warrior culture has conquered half the galaxy while your species was still playing in mud." Chen was quiet for a moment, then said, "Admiral, may I ask you something?" "Speak quickly. My patience grows thin." "In all your conquests, in all 17 species you've defeated, did any of them ever retreat toward their home systems like we're doing now?" Zexhai's eyes narrowed. "They fought to the bitter end, as warriors should." "Exactly," Chen said. "They stood and fought where they were. They threw everything they had at you in desperate last stands. But we're not doing that, are we, Admiral? Because you are cowards. Or because we're doing something different." Chen leaned forward slightly. "Tell me, Admiral, where are we retreating to? Your home system, where we will finish you. And what happens when a human force gets cornered in its home system?" Zexhai was about to respond with another insult, but something in the human's tone made him pause. He looked at the tactical display again. The human fleet was indeed moving toward their inner systems, but their formation was odd. Instead of the scattered, panicked retreat he would expect from a beaten enemy, they maintained perfect discipline. Their ships moved in coordinated groups, covering each other's withdrawal with practiced precision. "You fight to the death," Zexhai said, but his voice lacked its earlier certainty. "Do we?" Chen asked. "Admiral, In the 6 months we've been fighting, how many of our ships have you actually destroyed? HFY's tactical officer quickly pulled up the engagement records. Sir, we have confirmed kills on 47 human vessels. 47, Chen repeated. And how many ships have engaged your forces? The tactical officer looked confused. Sir, we estimate the human fleet at approximately 800 vessels, but they seem to cycle different ships into combat rotation. 800? HFY snapped. That's impossible. Our intelligence reports indicated they had no more than 300 vessels total. Chen's expression remained neutral. Your intelligence was correct, Admiral. 6 months ago. A chill ran through HFY's command crew. The Admiral's voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. What are you saying, human? I'm saying that while you've been chasing our fleets around the outer rim, our shipyards have been working around the clock. Every day you've spent in our space, we've been building. Every battle you've fought, we've been learning. Every victory you've celebrated, we've been preparing. Impossible, HFY snarled. We destroyed your production facilities. You destroyed some of them, Chen corrected. The ones we let you find. Admiral, humans have been preparing for this war for longer than you know. When our scouts first detected your expansion into this sector, we didn't build our shipyards on planets or stations where you could easily target them. On the tactical display, new contacts began appearing. At first just a few, then dozens, then hundreds. Ships were emerging from asteroid fields, hidden bases, and what appeared to be empty space itself. Impossible, HFY whispered, but his voice shook. We built them inside asteroids, Admiral, hollowed out dead worlds, created mobile platforms that look like space debris. For 3 years, we've been preparing for this moment. The tactical officer's voice cracked as he read his instruments. Admiral, I'm detecting massive energy signatures throughout the system. The asteroids, they're opening up. Chen continued speaking as if nothing had changed. Every system you've conquered, Admiral, every colony you've taken, you've been walking deeper into a carefully constructed trap. We've been watching you, studying your tactics, learning how you fight. You cannot have that many ships, HFY protested, even as his display showed more human vessels appearing every second. Can't we? Chen asked. Admiral, what do you know about human industrial capacity during wartime? HFY said nothing, his mind reeling as the tactical situation transformed before his eyes. In our history, we had a global conflict called World War II. One of our nations went from producing civilian automobiles to building bombers, fighters, tanks, and ships at a rate that their enemies couldn't comprehend. They called it the Arsenal of Democracy. In 4 years, they built over 300,000 aircraft alone. The human fleet that had been retreating began to slow, then stop. New formations were emerging from their hidden bases, moving to positions that would cut off the Caltharian retreat routes. That was with 1940s technology, Admiral. Imagine what we can do now, with automated manufacturing, fusion power, and 3 entire solar systems devoted to nothing but ship construction. HFY's communications officer spoke up urgently. Admiral, we're receiving reports from all our occupied systems. Human fleets are appearing everywhere. They're not retreating anymore, sir. They're attacking. Chen's image smiled for the first time. I tried to warn you, Admiral. I gave you a chance to leave human space peacefully. This is impossible, HFY repeated. Our scouts would have detected such massive construction efforts. Your scouts saw exactly what we wanted them to see, Chen replied. Humans have been practicing deception warfare for thousands of years, Admiral. We wrote books on it. Sun Tzu, Clausewitz, von Manstein. We've been students of strategic misdirection since before we learned to fly. The tactical display was now showing over 2,000 human vessels, and more were still appearing. The Caltharian fleet, spread thin across a dozen captured systems, suddenly found themselves outnumbered and surrounded. You wanted to know why we retreated instead of fighting to the death? Chen asked. Because we knew you would follow. We knew you would spread your forces thin to garrison our systems. We knew you would grow confident and careless. And we knew that when the moment came, you would be exactly where we wanted you. Zexhai's strategic mind finally grasped the scope of what had been done to his forces. You never intended to defend the outer systems. Oh, we intended to defend them, Chen corrected, just not in the way you expected. Instead of throwing our ships away in futile gestures, we made you pay for every system with time and resources. We made you split your forces to hold what you had taken. We made you confident enough to push deeper into our space. And while we chased shadows, you built an armada. While you conquered empty colonies and destroyed decoy facilities, we prepared for total war, Chen confirmed. Admiral, I want you to understand something. Humans don't fight the same war twice. Every conflict teaches us new lessons. Every defeat shows us new strategies. And this time, we had 3 years to prepare. The communications officer interrupted urgently. Admiral Kethamar is requesting immediate reinforcement. His battle group is under attack by human forces numbering in the hundreds. As are Admirals Vorthak, Zelgoth, and Tixion, another officer added. Sir, every one of our garrison fleets is reporting massive human attacks. Chen leaned back in his chair. Would you like to know the real reason I called you, Admiral? Speak. Professional courtesy. In about 30 minutes, every Caltharian fleet in human space is going to find itself outnumbered 5-1. Your ships are good, Admiral. Your warriors are brave. But you're spread across a dozen systems, and we're about to hit each of those systems with overwhelming force. Zexhai's claws extended, scraping against his command throne. You think you can destroy the Caltharian Imperium with one battle? I think we can destroy your invasion force, Chen replied. And that will be enough. Admiral, in human warfare, there's a concept called decisive battle. One engagement that determines the outcome of an entire conflict. Today, we're going to demonstrate that concept. We will not surrender, Zexhai snarled. I never expected you to, Chen replied sadly. But I wanted to give you the choice. Professional soldier to professional soldier. The tactical officer's voice was barely audible. Admiral, human forces are moving to attack positions throughout the sector. We have confirmed visual on enemy battleships that are larger than anything in our intelligence reports. Chen nodded. We learned from your ship designs, Admiral. Bigger guns, better armor, stronger shields. The difference is, we built them specifically to fight you. Even if you destroy our fleets, human, the Imperium will send others. Will they? Chen asked. Admiral, losing a dozen battle fleets and 30,000 veteran warriors is going to hurt your Imperium badly. Losing them to a species you considered primitive will hurt even more. And when word spreads that humans can hide entire armadas in plain sight, he let the implication hang in the air. Other species will begin to wonder what else we're capable of, Zexhai finished grimly. Exactly. Admiral, this isn't just about stopping your invasion. It's about sending a message to the galaxy. Humans are not prey. The communications officer looked up with terror in her eyes. Admiral, the human fleet, it's not just ships. They have mobile battle stations hidden in those asteroids, weapons platforms larger than our dreadnoughts. Chen's image flickered as the transmission began to degrade. Admiral, I need to go now. My fleet commanders are requesting final confirmation for the attack. Wait, Zexhai called out. Human! Marcus Chen! Why? Why show me this before the battle? Why warn me at all? Chen was quiet for a moment. Because despite everything, Admiral, I respect you as a warrior. You fought well and your people have shown courage, but you made one critical mistake. Which was? You assume that because humans retreat, we are weak. You confused tactical withdrawal with cowardice, and you forgot the most important rule of warfare. What rule? Chen's image began to fade as the transmission ended. Never underestimate your enemy's capacity for strategic patience. The connection severed, leaving Zexhai alone with his thoughts and the overwhelming reality displayed on his tactical screens. Around him, his officers waited for orders. But for the first time in his military career, the admiral of the Caltharian Imperium had no idea what to command. Outside the bridge windows, the human fleet was moving into attack formation, and Admiral Zexhai realized that everything he thought he knew about warfare was about to be tested against an enemy that had turned deception into an art form. The battle for human space was about to begin, but in a way that no Caltharian strategist had ever imagined. Admiral Zexhai stared at the tactical display, his mind struggling to process what his instruments were showing him. In the space of 10 minutes, the strategic situation had transformed from certain victory to potential catastrophe. The human fleet had stopped retreating and was now advancing in perfect formation, while new contacts continued to appear from concealed positions throughout the system. "Report," he commanded, his voice steadier than he felt. "Sir, we count 2,700 human vessels, and the number is still climbing," his tactical officer reported. "They appear to have been hiding ships in asteroid fields, gas giant atmospheres, and what we believe to be space debris." "How is that possible? Our sensors would have detected such massive energy signatures." "Apparently not, sir. They seem to have developed stealth technology far beyond our estimates." Zexhai's communications array lit up with incoming messages. "Admiral," his communications officer called out urgently, "we're receiving distress calls from all our garrison fleets. Admiral Kethmar reports he's facing over 400 human ships at the Centauri system. Admiral Vorthak says he's under attack by 600 vessels at Wolf 359. 600. Zexhai's voice cracked slightly. "That's more ships than we thought they had in their entire fleet." "Yes, sir. And sir, Admiral Tixion at the Tau Ceti system reports that the human ships there are using weapons we've never seen before." The main display switched to a visual feed from one of the distant battle sites. Zexhai watched in growing alarm as human vessels unleashed devastating energy beams that seemed to cut through Caltharian shields like they weren't even there. "What are those weapons?" he demanded. His science officer worked frantically at his console. "Sir, initial analysis suggests they're using some form of concentrated antimatter stream. The power requirements would be enormous, but if they've solved the containment problems..." "They've built their ships around weapons specifically designed to penetrate our defenses," Zexhai realized with growing dread. On the tactical display, the human fleet continued its methodical advance. But this wasn't the desperate charge of a cornered enemy. Every movement was precise, calculated, coordinated with the kind of tactical excellence that took years to develop. "Sir," the tactical officer spoke up again, "I'm analyzing their fleet composition. These aren't just larger numbers, sir. These are entirely new ship classes. Look at this." The display focused on one of the approaching human vessels. Where Caltharian ships favored elegant curves and traditional design aesthetics, this human ship was purely functional. Every surface bristled with weapons. Every angle was calculated for maximum efficiency. "It's 3 times the mass of our heavy cruisers. But look at its energy output," the officer continued. "Sir, that single ship is generating more power than most of our battle groups." "How many ships of that class do they have?" "Preliminary count shows..." "Sir, we've identified over 200 of these heavy units." Zexhai felt a chill run down his spine. The humans had not only built a larger fleet, they had built a better fleet. While the Caltharian military had remained confident in their technological superiority, the humans had been innovating. "Admiral," his science officer called out, "I'm detecting massive energy buildups throughout the human fleet. They're powering weapon systems that are..." "Sir, these energy readings are beyond anything in our database." "Show me." The main screen switched to sensor analysis mode, revealing the electromagnetic signatures of the approaching human ships. What Zexhai saw defied his understanding of ship-based weapons technology. "These energy levels should be impossible to contain in a mobile platform," his science officer continued. The power cores alone would require... They've solved fusion efficiency problems we didn't even know existed, HFY finished grimly. A new message appeared on his console, marked with the highest priority encryption. Admiral Kethmar's face appeared, his usual composure completely shattered. HFY, you need to get out of there now, Kethmar said without preamble. These aren't the same humans we've been fighting. They're ships. They're not just bigger, they're completely different. We hit one of their battleships with everything we had, and it didn't even slow down. Kethmar, report your situation. My situation? My situation is that I brought 1,200 ships to this system, and I'm facing an enemy that treats them like target practice. HFY, their smallest ships are armed with weapons that can gut our cruisers in single volleys. The transmission flickered as explosions lit up the space around Kethmar's flagship. They're not just winning, HFY, they're demonstrating. Every shot is precise, every maneuver is calculated. It's like they know exactly what we're going to do before we do it. That's impossible, is it? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like we're fighting an enemy that studied every aspect of our military doctrine and built an entire fleet specifically to counter it. The transmission cut out as Kethmar's ship came under heavy fire. HFY stared at the blank screen, then slowly turned back to his own tactical situation. The human fleet was now within weapons range, but they hadn't fired yet. Instead, they had formed a perfect sphere around the Caltharian position, maintaining precise distances and overlapping fields of fire. It was a textbook encirclement maneuver, executed with flawless coordination. "Sir," his communications officer reported, "we're receiving a transmission from the human flagship." "Put it through." Admiral Chen's image reappeared, but now he was standing on what was clearly a military bridge. Behind him, HFY could see human officers working at stations that hummed with advanced technology. "Admiral HFY," Chen said formally, "I'm required to offer you one final opportunity to surrender your forces." Required by whom? By human military law. Even in total war, we're obligated to offer quarter to a surrounded enemy. HFY looked at his tactical display. His fleet was outnumbered nearly 4-1, surrounded by ships that appeared to be technologically superior and cut off from any possibility of retreat or reinforcement. "And if we refuse, then we will demonstrate why humans don't fight the same war twice." Chen gestured, and the display behind him showed a tactical overview of all the human colonies the Caltharians had occupied over the past months. Each system now showed massive human fleets moving to retake them. "Admiral, in the past 6 months, you've taught us how Caltharian forces fight. You've shown us your tactics, your weapons, your strategies. We've studied every engagement, analyzed every defeat. And now, we're going to show you what humans do with that knowledge." "You expect us to believe you learned all this from 6 months of losing battles?" "Not losing, Admiral. Training." Chen's expression was grim. "Every retreat taught us something new. Every system you took showed us another aspect of your military doctrine. You thought you were conquering human space, but you were actually giving us the most comprehensive military education in galactic history." HFY's tactical officer spoke urgently. "Sir, I'm detecting energy spikes across the human fleet. They're targeting our ships with incredible precision." "Targeting us how?" "Sir, it appears they're individually painting every ship in our fleet with targeting systems. Each of our vessels is being tracked by multiple human ships." Chen continued speaking from the display. "Admiral, human military doctrine has one fundamental principle that we've learned from centuries of warfare. When facing a superior enemy, you don't fight them on their terms. You change the nature of the conflict itself." "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that while you were fighting the war you wanted to fight, we were preparing for the war we knew we could win. You wanted individual ship duels and honor combat. We built overwhelming firepower and coordinated tactics." On HFY's tactical display, patterns began to emerge in the human fleet positioning. Each Caltharian ship was surrounded by multiple human vessels, but the formations were strange. Instead of preparing for a general engagement, it looked like the humans were setting up for, "You're planning to take us all simultaneously," HFY realized. 30 seconds from now, every Caltharian ship in this system will come under fire from precisely calculated directions by exactly the right number of human vessels to guarantee destruction. We've run the tactical simulations 800 times, Admiral. In every scenario, your fleet ceases to exist in under 4 minutes. Impossible. No force can coordinate an attack that precise across such distances. Human forces can, Chen replied simply. Admiral, we spent 3 years building this fleet, but more importantly, we spent 3 years training to fight as a single coordinated unit. Every captain knows their role. Every crew has practiced this specific battle. We've rehearsed destroying a Caltharian invasion fleet so many times that we can do it in our sleep. HFY felt the weight of true strategic defeat settling on his shoulders. This wasn't just a military loss. This was a demonstration that everything the Caltharian Imperium believed about warfare and superiority was wrong. "Sir," his weapons officer reported, "the humans have achieved target lock on every ship in the fleet." "All of them?" "Every single vessel, sir. From our flagship down to the smallest escort." Chen's image leaned forward slightly. "Admiral, I want you to understand what's about to happen. This isn't revenge. This isn't about conquering Caltharian space or destroying your people. This is about sending a message that will echo across the galaxy." "What message?" "That humanity is no longer anyone's prey. That any species that comes into human space with conquest in mind will face the full weight of human strategic thinking, human industrial capacity, and human determination." HFY looked around his bridge. His officers were staring at their instruments with expressions of disbelief and growing terror. They had spent their entire military careers believing in Caltharian superiority, and now that belief was crumbling around them. "Admiral," Chen continued, "your species has conquered 17 others. In every case, you relied on technological superiority and individual warrior prowess. But humans fight differently. We fight with our minds first, our hearts second, and our weapons last." "And you believe this makes you superior?" "I believe it makes us survivors," Chen replied. "Admiral, in human history, we've faced extinction dozens of times. Ice ages, asteroid impacts, global wars, plagues that killed half our population. Each time we adapted, we learned, we overcame." The tactical display showed the final human ships moving into position. The encirclement was complete, and every Caltharian vessel was now surrounded by superior numbers with no possibility of escape. "When we encountered your Imperium, we had 2 choices," Chen explained. "Submit to conquest, or find a way to win an impossible war against a technologically superior enemy. We chose to win. By hiding like cowards. By thinking like strategists," Chen corrected. "Admiral, courage is charging into battle against overwhelming odds. Wisdom is making sure those odds are in your favor before the battle begins." HFY closed his eyes for a moment, then opened them and looked directly at the human commander. "If we surrender, what happens to my people?" "Your military personnel will be treated according to human prisoner of war conventions. Your civilian populations in Caltharian space will be left alone. Your government will have the opportunity to negotiate a peace treaty." "And if we fight?" Chen's expression grew sad. "Then you'll discover why humans became the dominant species on a planet where everything was bigger, stronger, and more dangerous than we were." "Time?" 15 seconds, Admiral." HFY looked at his tactical display one last time. Over 3,000 human ships had materialized from hiding, surrounding his fleet with mathematical precision. In all his years of military service, he had never seen such tactical coordination. "Admiral Chen," he called out. "Yes?" "How long have you been planning this?" Chen was quiet for a moment. "Since the day we learned your Imperium existed, Admiral. Humans don't prepare for the wars they want to fight. We prepare for the wars we need to win. 5 seconds, Admiral. Zexhai looked around his bridge one final time, then spoke in a voice that carried throughout the ship. All vessels, this is Admiral Zexhai. Stand down weapons and prepare to surrender. The battle is over. But as he spoke those words, Admiral Zexhai realized that this wasn't just the end of a battle. It was the beginning of a new era in galactic politics, one where humanity would no longer be underestimated by anyone. 3 weeks after the surrender of the Caltharian invasion fleet, Admiral Marcus Chen stood in the observation deck of the captured Caltharian flagship, Eternal Dominion. Through the reinforced windows, he could see the massive human fleet that had emerged from hiding, now organized into patrol formations throughout what had once been contested space. The sight was impressive, but Chen felt no satisfaction in it. Victory, he had learned long ago, was often more complicated than defeat. Behind him, footsteps approached. Chen turned to see Admiral Zexhai, still in Caltharian military uniform, but without weapons or rank insignia. The former enemy commander had requested this meeting through proper diplomatic channels. Admiral Chen, Zexhai said formally, thank you for agreeing to see me. Admiral, Chen replied, gesturing toward the viewing area. Please join me. The two officers stood side by side, looking out at the human fleet. For several minutes, neither spoke. Finally, Zexhai broke the silence. I have been studying your military history, he said quietly. Oh. Your people have fought over 400 major wars in the past 3,000 years. By our calculations, you should have destroyed yourselves long ago. Chen nodded slowly. We came close several times. Nuclear weapons, biological warfare, environmental collapse. Each time, we found ways to step back from the brink. How? We learned that survival is more important than victory, and that sometimes the best way to win is to make sure everyone can live with the outcome. Zexhai was quiet for a moment. My government has received your terms for the peace treaty. What do they think? They are confused. In all our conquests, we have never encountered terms like these. Chen turned slightly to face the Caltharian admiral. Confused how? You are demanding no territory, no tribute, no slaves, no resources. Zexhai's forearms gestured in bewilderment. You defeated our invasion fleet completely, captured 12 admirals and over 30,000 veteran warriors, and you asked for nothing. We're asking for something very important, Chen corrected. We're asking for peace. But you could demand anything. Your fleet could conquer a dozen of our systems before we could mount an effective defense. Chen turned back to the window. Admiral, let me ask you a question. If humanity conquered part of the Caltharian Imperium, what would happen? You would face constant rebellion, guerrilla warfare, sabotage. Every day would cost you ships and personnel to maintain control over a hostile population. Exactly. And what would we gain from that? Zexhai thought for a moment. Territory, resources, the satisfaction of revenge. Territory we don't need. Resources we can obtain through trade, and revenge that would cost us more than we would ever gain. Chen smiled slightly. Admiral? Humans learned long ago that conquering an enemy often costs more than defeating them. Then what do you want? We want the galaxy to know that humans are not prey, Chen said simply. We want every species that might consider attacking us to understand exactly what the cost would be. And we want to demonstrate that humans fight to defend, not to conquer. Zexhai was quiet for several minutes, processing this. Finally, he spoke again. The recordings of our battle have been transmitted throughout the Imperium. The sight of 3,000 human ships appearing from hidden positions has had an impact. What kind of impact? Several species that were planning to join our expansion into this sector have withdrawn their applications. 3 of our current allies have requested emergency meetings to discuss defensive partnerships. And our military leadership is demanding a complete review of our intelligence-gathering methods. Chen nodded. That was the point. Admiral, we could have destroyed your fleet completely. We had the firepower and positioning to eliminate every Caltharian ship in human space within minutes. Why didn't you? Because dead enemies can't spread word about human capabilities. Your survivors will return home with detailed reports of what they saw. Every officer in your fleet will tell their colleagues about human strategic thinking, human technology, and human tactical coordination. HFY turned to stare at Chen. You want them to be afraid of you. We want them to be cautious, Chen corrected. There's a difference. Fear leads to desperate actions and escalating conflicts. Caution leads to respect and peaceful coexistence. And you believe this will work? Chen was quiet for a moment, then said, Admiral, let me tell you about an event in human history called the Cuban Missile Crisis. Two of our most powerful nations came very close to nuclear war. For 13 days, the fate of our entire species hung in the balance. What happened? Both sides stepped back. They realized that winning a nuclear war was impossible because there would be nothing left to win. So instead, they found ways to communicate, to establish boundaries, to coexist without constant conflict. And this lasted for decades. Those two nations became partners in space exploration, scientific research, and eventually close allies. Not because they learned to trust each other, but because they learned to respect each other's capabilities. HFY nodded slowly. You want the galaxy to respect human capabilities. We want the galaxy to understand that attacking humans costs more than it gains, Chen replied. Admiral, your Imperium has conquered 17 species. How many of those conquests actually benefited your people? All of them brought resources, territory, strategic advantage. But at what cost? How many Caltharian warriors died in those campaigns? How much of your industrial capacity goes to maintaining control over hostile populations? How many resources are devoted to garrison fleets instead of improving life for your own people? HFY was quiet, clearly thinking about these questions. Chen continued. Humans have done the mathematics of empire, Admiral. We've had our own periods of conquest and expansion, and we learned that military victory rarely translates to long-term benefit. So you choose isolation instead. We choose selective engagement. We trade with species that want to trade. We share knowledge with those interested in learning. We defend ourselves against those who threaten us. But we don't try to control others. That sounds efficient. It is. Admiral, the fleet that surrounded your forces represents less than half of human military capacity. The other half is devoted to exploration, scientific research, and improving life for our own people. Your Imperium spends most of its resources on conquest and control. HFY looked out at the human ships again. Which approach has produced better technology? You tell me. Your ships were state-of-the-art when this war began. How did they perform against human vessels that were designed and built during the conflict? Poorly, HFY admitted. Your weapons were more advanced, your defenses more effective, your coordination superior. It was as if you were fighting a war several generations ahead of us technologically. Because we were. Admiral, while your engineers were building ships to conquer primitives, our engineers were building ships to fight the Caltharian Imperium. We had 3 years to study your technology, understand your tactics, and develop specific countermeasures. And now, Chen smiled. Now we're already working on designs to counter the next potential threat. Humans don't prepare for the last war, Admiral. We prepare for the next one. A soft chime sounded through the observation deck, and Chen checked his communicator. Admiral, I'm afraid our time is up. Your transport to the neutral zone is ready. HFY turned to face Chen directly. Before I go, I must ask you something. Go ahead. When you first called me, when you offered terms before the battle, were you genuinely hoping I would accept? Chen was quiet for a moment. Yes, Admiral, I was. Why? Because despite being enemies, I respected you as a warrior and a leader. Because unnecessary death serves no strategic purpose. And because I hoped that wisdom might prevail over pride. And when it didn't, then we did what we had to do to protect human space and send the necessary message. Chen extended his hand in the human gesture of farewell. Admiral, I hope our species can find a way to coexist peacefully. Zexhai looked at the offered hand, then clasped it with one of his own. Admiral Chen, may I tell you something? Of course. In all my years of military service in all 17 conquest campaigns, I have never encountered an enemy who fought with such completeness. Your people didn't just defeat us militarily. You defeated us strategically, psychologically, and technologically. Chen nodded. And how does that make you feel? Humbled, Zexhai admitted. And perhaps relieved. Relieved. Because now I understand why humanity survived to become a spacefaring species. On a planet where everything was more dangerous than you were, you learned to think your way out of impossible situations. You developed strategic patience. You perfected the art of making your enemies defeat themselves. Chen was quiet for a moment. Admiral, would you like to know something that might surprise you? What? Everything you just described we learned from studying other species, including yours. That's impossible. Is it? Admiral, humans have been watching galactic politics for over a century. We've studied every major conflict, every conquest, every diplomatic solution. The Caltharian Imperium has been one of our primary subjects of study. Because you were planning to fight us? Because we were planning to survive contact with you, Chen corrected. And the only way to do that was to understand exactly how your military machine worked. Zexhai stared at Chen. You're saying you learned Caltharian military doctrine better than we knew it ourselves. We learned it from the outside, which gave us a perspective you couldn't have from the inside. We saw patterns in your conquests that you didn't recognize. We identified weaknesses in your system that your own strategists missed. Such as your assumption that technological superiority equals strategic superiority. Your belief that individual warrior courage could overcome coordinated tactical thinking. Your confidence that previous victories guaranteed future ones. Zexhai nodded slowly. And you designed this entire conflict to exploit those weaknesses. We designed this conflict to protect human space with minimum casualties on both sides, Chen replied. The psychological impact was a secondary consideration. Secondary? Admiral, we could have built a defensive fleet that would have made attacking human space impossibly costly, but that would have led to a long, grinding war of attrition. Instead, we built a fleet that could demonstrate overwhelming superiority quickly and decisively. To convince us that continued aggression was pointless. To convince everyone that attacking humans is pointless, Chen corrected. Admiral, within a month, every intelligence service in the galaxy will have detailed reports of this battle. They'll know that humans can hide entire fleets, that we can build superior technology during wartime, and that we can coordinate complex military operations with perfect precision. Zexhai was quiet for several minutes, then asked, What happens now? Now you return home and report what you've seen. Your government decides whether to accept our peace terms or continue a war they cannot win. And humanity continues preparing for whatever comes next. And if my government chooses continued war, Chen's expression grew serious. Then we'll demonstrate that the force you encountered was just the beginning of human military capability. You have more ships? Admiral, what you saw was our rapid response fleet, the ships we could build and deploy in 3 years while fighting an active war. Imagine what we could build in 10 years of preparation, with our entire industrial capacity devoted to military production. Zexhai felt a chill at the implications. You're talking about a fleet that could threaten the entire Imperium. We're talking about a fleet that could guarantee human independence permanently, Chen replied. Admiral, we don't want to conquer the galaxy, but we will never again allow ourselves to be vulnerable to conquest. The transport alert chimed again, and Chen gestured toward the exit. Admiral, your ship is waiting. As they walked toward the docking bay, Zexhai spoke one last time. Admiral Chen, may I ask what you personally hope will come of this? Chen stopped walking and turned to face the Caltharian officer. I hope that 50 years from now, our species will be trading partners instead of enemies. I hope that Caltharian engineering and human innovation will combine to advance both our civilizations. I hope that this war will be remembered as the moment when the galaxy learned that cooperation produces better results than conquest. And if that doesn't happen, then at least the galaxy will remember that humanity is not prey, Chen replied simply. Admiral Zexhai boarded his transport ship, carrying with him the knowledge that would reshape galactic politics for generations to come. As the ship pulled away from the human fleet, he looked back at the massive formation of vessels that had appeared from nowhere to demonstrate humanity's strategic genius. The humans had won more than a battle. They had won the right to be respected as a major galactic power. And they had done it not through conquest, but through the demonstration of such overwhelming defensive capability that conquest became unthinkable. Throughout the galaxy, military planners would study the human victory for decades, trying to understand how a species could hide an entire armada while appearing to retreat. The answer, when they finally understood it, would change everything about how galactic warfare was conducted. Humans didn't fight the same war twice. They fought the war they needed to win, using whatever methods would achieve victory with minimum cost to all sides. And now, everyone knew it.